Good morning, everyone. Hello, I am Vishal, and I shall be one of the teachers guiding you through our history optional. Right now, today I have a short video about a very important but often misunderstood part of medieval Indian history. This was one of the most important administrative contributions by Akbar, who is widely regarded as one of the biggest institution builders of medieval India. This institution allowed the Mughals to remain a strong, centralized, and expanding power for about 150 years. We are, of course, talking about the Mansabdari system. Right? And like any good student of history, to understand any topic, we must first identify the objectives behind the introduction of any new institution and finally appreciate its features and characteristics. So, beginning with the objectives of the Mansabdari system. Firstly, through the Mansabdari system, Akbar wanted to create an efficient and effective administrative machinery that was capable of transmitting imperial control from the centers at Agra and Delhi to the entire Mughal empire, stretching at that point of time from Punjab and Sindh right up to Bengal, and from Kashmir right up to the Deccan region. Secondly, he wanted a mechanism which would allow him to integrate his civilian and military bureaucracy along with the diverse nobility of the Mughal Empire into a merit-based hierarchy. Right? Thirdly, Akbar wanted a mechanism whereby the interests of the imperium, that means the imperial interests and the interests of the nobility, could be aligned with each other. So he wanted to cultivate a bond which allowed the satisfaction of both the imperial interests as well as the aristocratic interests at the same time. That means he wanted the nobles to work from the imperium and then and as a result profit because of it. Okay? Alignment of imperial and aristocratic interests. Fourthly, he envisaged the Mansabdari system as the foundation of a strong military, which would become the basis, it would become the very foundation of enduring Mughal power and expansion of Mughal territory. And finally, Akbar wanted the Mansabdari system to emerge as the axis on which his despotic authority rests. So, administrative centralization with a focus on enhancing the absolute power of the ruler. That means he envisaged the Mansabdari system as an instrument of imperial despotism and royal supremacy, right? So these were the objectives behind the introduction of the Mansabdari system. Now, the Mansabdari system was not an entirely new invention by Akbar. Rather, it was a modification and innovation of pre-existing administrative systems which had inspired the Mansabdari system. The earliest version of the Mansabdari system could be found with respect to the Mongolian Empire, right? It had initially been introduced by Genghis Khan. It was inherited by his successors, one of whom happened to be Amir Timur, and from Amir Timur, the legacy continued till Babur. Babur had brought a version of the Mansabdari system known as Wajahdari to India for the first time. And the Mansabdari system was a modification of that same Wajahdari, right? Now, coming to the features and characteristics of the Mansabdari system. First of all, the word Mansab is an Arabic word which means rank, right? So the Mansabdari system would entail an element of ranking. In fact, every Mughal official was granted two ranks. So it had a system of dual ranks known as the Zat rank and the Sawar rank, right? The Zat rank denoted the personal rank of all office holders within the Mughal bureaucratic hierarchy. Upon the Zat rank also depended the personal salary, either in cash or kind, that would be drawn by that official from the Mughal treasury. The Mughal Empire, on the other hand, was also a war state. A war state is a state which is created on the basis of military superiority and which is sustained and expands on the basis of that same military superiority. Therefore, the military becomes a very important aspect of imperial control and expansion. Weakness in the military may spell doom for the entire state machinery. And as a result, there is no clear demarcation between civilian and military officials. In fact, all officials were expected to perform both military as well as civil responsibilities, civil administration. Therefore, all Mansabdars had a Sawar rank which denoted their military responsibility. In terms of the number of Sawars or horsemen that they had to maintain. Now, from Mughal records, especially the Akbarnama written by Abul Fazl, it becomes clear to us that under Akbar, the total number of Mansabdars was roughly 1850 or thereabouts. Okay. Abul Fazl also explains that the junior most mansabdars had a rank of 10 zat, 10 sawar, and the senior most had a rank of 5,000 zat, 5,000 sawar, right? And in between these two extremes, there were a total of 33 grades in multiples of 10. For example, the junior most rank was 10 10, 10 zat, 10 sawar. After that, 20 20, after that, 50 50, after that, 100 100, 200 200, and so on. So, a total number of 33 such grades existed. Theoretically, 66 could have existed, but practically only 33 existed. Okay. There was an element of subgradation built into the ranking system, right? Now, theoretically, all mansabdars with the zat of 5,000 would be considered to be equal in the eyes of the Mughal hierarchy. However, there was a way to differentiate between them as well, right? So, for example, if somebody has a mansab zat rank of 5,000 and a zat and a sawar rank of 5,000, he would be considered senior to a mansabdar with a zat rank of 5,000 but a sawar rank of only 3,000, right? Similarly, this mansabdar with 5,000 zat, 3,000 sawar rank would be considered senior to a mansabdar with 5,000 zat but only 2,000 sawar, right? And for every rank, 3 sub ranks were possible. Namely, one case in which the zat rank was equivalent to the sawar rank, right? Or sawar rank was equivalent to the zat rank. They would be considered the senior most out of that rank. Then another case wherein zat rank was less than the sawar rank but more than half the zat rank. Sorry, sawar rank was less than the zat rank but more than half the zat rank. That is, sawar rank less than 5,000 but more than 2,500. And finally, the junior most among them would be the one with sawar rank that was less than half of the zat rank, less than 2,500, that is 2,000, right? So subgradation was also possible. So this was the way in which the Mughal mansabdars were ranked from top to bottom with subgradation within each sawar, within each zat rank. Secondly, Akbar was nothing if not extremely practical. He had first-hand experience of several battles. He was a leader of several campaigns and understood the importance of horses, war horses, in any cavalry campaign. He understood that in the rough terrain of India, horses get easily wounded. Many are killed in battle, many scatter, and thus for a cavalry force to be effective, it is essential that horsemen have access to additional mounts, to additional horses at all times. And thus, he introduced what was known as the DBishi system. Right? Da in Persian means 10 and Bishti means 20. Thus, these. Right? Now, this system performed two functions. First, it meant that for every cavalry unit consisting of 10 horsemen, there would be 20 horses. So it promised or it ensured the availability of sufficient number of additional mounts. And secondly, it provided a very simple solution to a very important problem within each company of 10 horsemen, that how to differentiate between the individual savars, between the individual horsemen. Some would be less experienced, some would be more experienced, some would be poorer fighters, some would be better fighters, some would be natural leaders, others would be natural followers. So how to reward those with leadership qualities, how to identify the next set of core commanders from these individual savars. So it provided a very simple solution to the problem of ranking the individual savars. The DBishi system entailed that every group of 10 horsemen should have 20 horses. How? The three senior most and most experienced horsemen would be required to maintain 3 horses each. The next 4 in the experience and ability scale would be expected to maintain 2 horses each. And finally, the 3 junior most would be responsible for maintaining 1 horse each. कितने हुए ये? 3 into 3 9, 4 into 2 8, and 3 into 1 3. 3 plus 4 plus 3 10, 9 plus 8 plus 3 20, 10 20 DBishi. ठीक है? So the DBishi system was introduced by Akbar to ensure the availability of sufficient number of additional mounts, as well as to rank the individual savars within each unit of 10 cavalrymen. All right, this is the second characteristic. Thirdly, since the Mansabdari system was designed to align the interests of the aristocracy with that of the imperium and create an efficient mechanism for administration, it was also important to ensure that it had a well-planned mechanism by which to pay the various officials. Payments. Right? Now, Mansabdars could be classified into 2 groups on the basis of the kind of payment that they received. Lower ranking Mansabdars, junior Mansabdars with ranks of 50 Zat or lower were generally paid in cash. They were known as Nagdi Mansabdars. Nagad means cash. So they received cash salaries directly from the imperial treasury. The higher ranking Mansabdars with larger Savar and Zat ranks, they were paid in the form of land revenue assignments known as Jagirs. And thus they were known as Jagirdars. They did not receive cash salaries, but in lieu of their services to the state, they received Jagirs or land revenue assignments. That means they were assigned a certain parcel of land from which they were allowed to collect revenue, which would look after their personal salary requirements as well as their military expenses. Now, these Jagirs were also of different categories. One type of Jagir was known as the Tanka Jagir. Another category was the Watan Jagir. Another was the Mashrut Jagir, and finally we had the Al-Tamgha Jagir. Right. Tankha means salary, right? So this was paid to ordinary ordinary mansabdars, right? That means these jagirs were neither permanently transferred, they were not permanent, they were not hereditary, they were not transferable. That means the Jagir holder was not allowed to sell it to somebody else in return for a monetary or in lieu of a monetary payment. And finally, they were non-contiguous with the area of jurisdiction. Right? So they were not permanent. They were given by the emperor and they could be taken back by the emperor to reward or punish a mansabdar. They were not hereditary. If a mansabdar dies suddenly, his jagir would lapse back to the state so that it could be distributed to another serving jagirdar, mansabdar. They were non-transferable. That means the mansabdar was not allowed to sell it to somebody else, and they were non-contiguous with the area of jurisdiction. Suppose a mansabdar has been posted in Punjab, he is not going to be assigned a jagir in Punjab. He is going to be assigned a jagir in a faraway province, maybe Bengal or maybe even in the Deccan region. Why? So that these mansabdars may not be able to misuse their administrative and military authority to entrench themselves in the areas that they are governing, right? So this was known as the Tankha Jagir. Watan Jagir, Watan means homeland. This was a type of Jagir that was given exclusively to Rajput Mansabdars, right? Akbar had come up with an enlightened Rajput policy which was meant to transform the Rajputs from their mortal enemies into their enduring allies. Akbar wanted to use the Rajputs as the sword arm of the empire. He wanted the Rajput soldiers and leaders to fight the Mughal campaigns and expand the Mughal empire on behalf of the emperor. Right? To reward the Rajputs, to induce them to join the umbrella of Mughal authority without warring, he promised them that if they submitted to the emperor's authority, their rule is going to be restored, their territory is going to be restored, and the Mughal Imperium is not going to interfere in their internal politics. The Mughal Imperium is not going to demand jizya from them. It is not going to interfere in succession issues, etc. Right? So इनको वतन जागीर असाइन करना अकबर ने शुरू किया. Right? Now, unlike the ordinary Tankha Jagirs, Watan Jagirs were permanent, they were hereditary, they were transferable, and they were also contiguous with the area under jurisdiction. That means the territory of the Rajput ruler was assigned to him once again as his own personal Watan Jagir that he and his successors would be able to enjoy in perpetuity. The emperor is not going to confiscate it or transfer it to somebody else. Mashrut Jagir was an additional Jagir that was given to a war front commander when he was actually fighting, right? Additional wartime Jagir. What was the logic behind it? those commanders, those Mansabdars who were fighting on behalf of the Mughal Empire may have the requirement of additional soldiers. And how to raise additional soldiers? With more money. And how would they obtain money? By more Jagirs, right? So Mashu Jagirs were battlefield Jagirs or wartime Jagirs that were temporarily given to the wartime commanders. And Al Tamga Jagirs, Tamga means medal, right? So this was a Jagir that was transferred to a Mansabdar for loyal service to the state, given as a reward. It was permanent, and in most cases it was hereditary in nature. Okay? So these are the different kinds of Jagirs and the two ways in which the Mughal Mansabdars were paid. Another characteristic of the Mansabdari system was its heterogeneity. Now, the Mughals came from Turkish speaking stock. They were descendants of Amir Timur belonging to the Fargana Valley. Babur's mother tongue was also Chagatai Turkish. However, after coming to power in India, Akbar realized that he would not be able to create a solid empire if he continued to depend on the support of only the Turks. The Turks constituted a very small minority in the entire population of India. In fact, the dominance of the Turkish elites during the Sultanate period had been one of the causes behind its perpetual instability and ultimate downfall, right? And therefore, Akbar, chose to create a heterogeneous nobility, a heterogeneous Mansabdari, by introducing all the important ethnic groups within it. It included, of course, the Turkish speakers or the Turanis, Persian speakers or Iranis, Afghans, who were left over from the Lodi and Suri periods, Rajputs, Indian Muslims known as Sheikh-Zadas, Deccanis, that is the Deccani Muslims who had been present in the Deccan region ever since the time of Muhammad bin Tughlaq and who had ultimately created the Bahmani Sultanate and the various Deccani Muslim Sultanates after the decline of the Delhi Sultanate. And later on, Marathas were also inducted into the Mughal Mansabdari system, right? Why to create a heterogeneous nobility? Why not a homogeneous nobility of only Turanis? Firstly, because it reflected the cultural and religious diversity of Akbar's empire. It widened the social base of the empire. It allowed the elites from all these groups to align their interests with that of the emperor instead of being left out and feeling resentful and thus opposing imperial control. And thirdly, the Mansabdari system was supposed to act as a check and balance to protect the emperor's power against ambitious nobles, right? Since the different groups would always compete against each other for imperial favor, there would be lesser of a possibility of any single group emerging as the dominant section of the Mansabdari, of the nobility, and thus introducing compulsory, or you can say pervasive control over the emperor. So it would prevent the emergence of kingmakers, right? So for introducing checks and balances. And finally, Akbar wanted to enhance his despotic authority. And one of the biggest hurdles that he needed to overcome was the orthodox Islamic religious class known as the ulema. These were the clerics. Now, in any medieval state, especially the Mughal Empire, the office of the emperor was considered to be a divine institution. And if any authority or if any source was possible, if it was possible for any source to challenge the imperial authority, that would be the religious class. So Akbar wanted to diminish the power of the religious class and introduce secular control over religion. Now, this would obviously have been opposed by the religious class, who would want to preserve their power. And in such a scenario, the diverse nobility would be acting as a weapon, would be acting as a shield to protect the emperor against any rebellion by the religious class. So it was, you can also see this as a bid to introduce or to enhance secular imperial authority over the ulema class, right? So this was a bid to enhance royal despotism, right? This was another feature. And finally, last important feature, that the Mansabdari system was not stagnant. It had the element of evolution. It had the flexibility to evolve over time. So it was evolutionary in nature, right? किस aspects में evolution होता है? In the aspects of both composition as well as features. Why would the composition and features of the Mansabdari system evolve? In response to emerging challenges and opportunities, right? For example, during the reign of Akbar, there were roughly 22% Hindu Mansabdars, and by the time of Aurangzeb, their composition had increased to 32% Hindu Mansabdars. And why was this? Because Aurangzeb's main campaign came in the Deccan region. He wanted to induct as many Maratha Mansabdars into the Mansabdari system as possible in order to weaken the Maratha revolt that was brewing in the Deccan region. That is why, to reward them, he introduced more Hindu Maratha Mansabdars. Similarly, with one revolt, let us say, led by an Afghan governor of the Deccan, ख़ान-ए-जहां Lodi, Shah Jahan would reduce the number of Afghan Mansabdars, right? But the same Afghan Mansabdars would be shown favor by Aurangzeb to counterbalance the rising power of the Rajput Mansabdars later on. So these are the kinds of challenges and opportunities that kept on emerging, and the different emperors kept on responding to them, leading to the evolution of the constant flux in the composition of the Mughal Mansabdari. The evolution of features was caused mainly due to one problem that was inherent within the Mansabdari system. क्या problem था ये? That Mansabdari system depended upon the reciprocal relationship between the emperors and the nobles, right? The nobility would continue to serve the emperor so long as the emperor had the means and the willingness to continuously reward them. And how would the emperor reward the Mansabdars, the nobles? By granting them more and more Jagirs, by inducting more and more Mansabdars into the Mansabdari system. As a result, what had happened was that the ranks of the Mansabdari had continued to grow over time. During the period of Akbar, as reported by Abul Fazl, the total number of Mansabdars was no more than 1850, with the senior most Mansabdars except for the Mughal princes enjoying the topmost rank of 5000 Zat, 5000 Sawar. By the time of Aurangzeb, this equation had shifted. The total number of Mansabdars was more than 14,500, with some Mansabdars enjoying ranks as high as 40,000 Zat, 40,000 Sawar. Not only had the number of Mansabdars increased, but the demand for Jagirs was also growing, right? And how to ensure that there are sufficient Jagirs at all time to be distributed? New territories would have to be annexed to the Mughal Empire, which could be then distributed as Jagirs. So constant territorial expansion became a precondition for maintaining the effectiveness of the Mansabdari system. And problem क्या emerge हुआ? That ever since the time of Akbar, while the Mughal Empire continued to grow continuously, the rate at which it was growing slowed down, right? So rate of Mughal territorial expansion was slower than the rate at which the Mansabdari was growing. So the demand for Jagirs continued to increase at a faster pace than the rate at which the availability of Jagirs was increasing. And what is going to be the result? A shortage of Jagirs, right? So this led to the shortage of Jagirs. Now this was a problem which reached crisis proportions during the reign of Aurangzeb, but had started emerging much earlier, in response to which previous emperors had introduced modifications. For example, Jahangir had introduced the Do-Aspa C-Aspa system. Right? Do means 2, C means 3. Aspa is Persian for horse. So this is the 2-horse, 3-horse system. Right? Now what he started doing was that he started assigning the additional rank of Do-Aspa or C-Aspa to his Mansabdars. Those who were given the rank of Do-Aspa were expected to maintain twice the number of horses that they would have originally been required to. For example, if somebody has been assigned the Do-Aspa rank and he has a Mansab rank of 5000 Zat, 5000 Sawar, earlier he would have been required to maintain 5000 horsemen, but now he was required to maintain 10,000 सवार्स. ठीक है, तो ये into 2 हो जाएगा. DBishi सिस्टम भी है तो पहले 10,000 हॉर्सेस, अब 20,000 हॉर्सेस मेंटेन करने पड़ेंगे. So this would translate into 5,000 and 10,000 rank effectively, right? What is the advantage of this? The Zat rank of that Mansabdar has remained the same. That means Jahangir has not had to increase the personal salary that he is giving to that Mansabdar. He is only going to have to incur the additional expenditure of maintaining extra horsemen. And how was that shortfall to be made up? By increasing the size of the Jagir? No, by giving additional cash allowances. Right? So instead of giving out additional Jagirs to increase the size of the military to maintain the fighting strength of the empire, cash was used in order to maintain it. Okay? However, this also provided a temporary solution to the emerging problem of shortage of Jagirs. And as a result, Shah Jahan was later forced to introduce the monthly scale or monthly ratio. Right? Problem kya hai? Number of Jagirdars is increasing, demand of Jagirs is increasing, but the availability of Jagirs is quite low. Therefore, there is increasing competition. Every Jagirdar needs to be satisfied, and as a result, monthly scale was introduced. Monthly ranks were assigned to all Jagirdars, ranging from 3 months to 6 months to 9 months to 12 months. मतलब क्या होगा इसका? Suppose a particular Mansabdar of 5,000 Zat, 5,000 Sawar rank is assigned a 9-month additional scale. This would mean that now he would be expected to maintain his 5,000 zamindars for a total of 9 out of the 12 months of the year. Okay? So his responsibilities have been reduced by a factor of 1/4. Clear? अब इसका क्या मतलब होगा? That he is going to pay his horsemen for a period of 9 months and stop paying them. He is going to feed his horses for a period of 9 months and then stop feeding them. No, this would mean that the number of horsemen and horses that he is required to maintain would be reduced by this factor by 3/4. So his Zat rank would remain 5,000, but effectively his savar rank would be reduced. ये हो जाएगा, राइट? कैलकुलेशन आप अपने आप से कर सकते हो कितना 3750 horses horsemen he would have to maintain, right? And now what this would allow the emperor to do would be to say that suppose theoretically if this Mansabdar was to get a Jagir of this size, now he would be able to take care of his military responsibilities with a Jagir of only 3/4 that size. This may be assigned to some other Jagirdar. Alright. So this was the monthly scale. Now this also slowed down the emergence of the Jagirdari crisis but was not able to prevent it permanently. The Jagirdari crisis emerged in its most vicious form after the death of Aurangzeb and is considered to be one of the important factors for the downfall of the Mughal Empire. Now, downfall of the Mughal Empire we are going to discuss on a different occasion. This was the remit of our video. To understand the objectives of the Mansabdari system and its important features and characteristics. I hope you found this explanation useful and you'd be able to implement it. Thank you for your time. I'll be seeing you soon with some other topic.